Good evening, everybody. December 5th, 2021. Going to go over Bitcoin here. We didn't have too much action today other than just some sideways chop. This little dip here does have some promise if we see follow through above these highs. So let's go over what that means. I had said on last night's video, potentially we've got this, one up here and maybe a two here. The next stop for it would be at least this 55.5 region in wave 3. And so now that we have this little possible microwave 1-2 within that, let's map out what that should look like. So potentially we've got the 1 and 2 within this third, right? The next wave up will probably get to about here, maybe a little bit higher, somewhere in that 52 range. And then we'll see a little pullback and then finally move up within that third. So we're going to make this smaller, something along those lines like that. Okay, so potentially, this is what we need to see, 3, 4, and 5, again up to at least this region. So, and it could go, a little higher, anywhere between the 1,382 and the 1,618 is ideal for that if we're going to get this. Okay, this is not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination right now. This is just, if we break these highs right here, this is kind of what I'm expecting, or what, not necessarily even what I'm expecting, but what I need to see in order to believe that we are entering the next stage of the bull market, rather than seeing new lows, right? We really need to see these 5 waves up. So if we can complete this, at least it's 5 waves up in a micro anyway, within a third wave. We still really need to see 4 and 5 complete here in order to really be sure. But if we can do this, I am very, very willing to give the bulls the benefit of the doubt. And then we'll have a nice support zone down here that we can potentially play. So that support zone really is probably going to be here. We might need to adjust it once we have this third in place. We can pull a fib specific to where that third went, but generally right now that's kind of the support zone I'd be looking at for a fourth and then a fifth up. Again, if we actually see this play out, these are the zones I'd be looking for, and we just need to keep following this micro action to see if we actually get it. So the first step is really to break this 49.7 high. So if we can get above 49.7, this has a much better chance. Now the one thing we need to be a little bit wary of is that if we go there, not only is that potentially a good place for the third, but that is unfortunately the 1.0 extension, which means this could be A, B, and C, followed by further downside. So once we get to here, we must remain above this low, I would say. We can probably move, if we get up there, I think we can move our stops up at least to that low right there, which is about 47.7. Once we break through, if we come down and then move up, off of the low there, once we break through the 1.0, then we can move our stop up even further, and really shouldn't go below like the 618.5 region. So if this does progress upwards like that, we can start moving stops up. Now, of course, is it possible that it just dies from here? Yeah, it is. This isn't really, it reached the 0.5. It's really not large enough for that to be considered an ABC, but neither was this action over here, which was the issue at the time, that we really didn't have a fully formed 3 waves up. So just keep that in mind. Now, I did say last night, this is a very, very clear capitulation wick. It really says to me the bottom is probably in. Excuse me. And at this point in time, we really need to stay above that low. I mean, breaking that low, and we are almost guaranteed to be heading back into the 30K region and potentially down into the mid-20s. So we must now stay above that 40, actually that went to 40, spiked down to 42. So we must stay above that 42 low, kind of as a hard line. And 43K is my line in the sand, really. Like if we see a sustained break of 43K, I mean, it's a pretty quick trip to 42, to be honest, but if we see a sustained break of 43K for some reason, it's likely that it goes down below that from there as well. So those are right now our points to watch. Once, if we get this wave, then we're going to start using this, I think, as our stop out point anyway, because in the best case scenario, if we come back down below that point, in the best case scenario, we would be doing just choppy sideways action, right? Just like we saw off of the 30K low a few months back, we saw it just consolidate sideways. It could never fully form 5 waves, and we saw it consolidate sideways for a while. So if we can break up here, but then we fail to break, to hold this low and break down lower, then the best case scenario is that we're going to be going sideways like this. Worst case scenario, obviously, is that we would continue downwards from there. So in either one of those instances, I think it would be wise to get out of any leverage positions, certainly. Once we get here, we'd stop out below there. And potentially, maybe you want to start raising some cash or something, kind of de-risking a little bit if we break that low, because you'll have time to reaccumulate. If it then proves that we're going to be doing sideways action like this, you'll have time to reaccumulate anytime it kind of dips down. Once we get a couple of these ABCs in place, it's going to make it, more clear that, maybe we can accumulate down a little lower and then have a good stop down here anyway, which would give a good risk-reward ratio again. So I think that's the best way to play it. Let's see if we can make these 5 waves form off the low. That would give us our V recovery that we're hoping for, rather than a sideways consolidation period. But there's not enough information right now to say if that's highly likely. But I would say if we break these highs, then that becomes a much better possibility at that point in time. Trying to see if there's anything else on here I need to make mention of. It's just interesting how these fibs play out, in my opinion. Obviously this little zone right here that used to be support, it provided a little support there, and that is my kind of planned resistance zone for this third wave. So that is interesting how that makes a lot of sense. And same thing up here, meeting resistance there, and then the planned support for 4 is right here, right? If we break through that, that should come down and test support. So all of this, the fibs are lining up really nicely with resistance and support zones that we may see as well, as far as horizontal lines go. So that's potential good news. But like I said, first hurdle is getting over that 49.7 in order to even attempt that. So that's what we need to see there. So the other thing that we can look at here is in the micro. If we now draw a fib extension from the bottom of that move to this micro one to the 2, we can see if this lines up with that next higher degree by looking at these fibs. So let's zoom in on this. We would want to see then, obviously 5 waves up within, we're looking for this 3. So 1, 2, 3. That 3 should go somewhere between the 1382 and 1618. So there's our micro resistance in this count, and that actually lines up right about there. It's maybe a little higher than where I had this, but that's fine. Like anywhere in here, that makes sense. So let's place that there. Then we would have a pullback in 4. This would want to hold, let's see, between the 10 and the 764 ideally. So we might see that hold a little higher. It could go lower, but we might see that hold a little higher there. So there's our micro kind of support region expected in this, and then last push up would go somewhere in this region typically. So this little micro kind of truncates maybe a little bit. It lines up, the very top of that lines up with the bottom of that one. So and that was where my original 3 was ending anyway, right there about 55.5. So that does make sense still to see basically within this third to see these 5 waves form. We're seeing the fibs for this micro line up decently well anyway, with the fibs for that slightly more macro viewpoint. So that's a good sign as well. But as I said previously, we need to see that break first, and then we can move up from there. If we do in fact break out to this region here, it would also involve a breakout of this downward trend line, which is obviously something we need to deal with. It rejected all the way here. That's what dumped us down hugely here, at the end of getting rejected once again from that trend line. So breaking through that trend line is going to be key for the bulls going forward. And at the moment, it looks like a 5-wave move like this is how we're going to do that. And this can extend, the timing on this is not set in stone when you're doing these things. It could still chop around here. It could hit 3, 4, and 5, more like this, and then come down to test. You know what I mean? So it can kind of stretch out a little bit further to make that breakout make a little bit more sense, and then a retest. Although we often have seen crypto break out and then break back down before doing an actual breakout as well. So we might see something like that too. But in any case, the micro is lining up, and a break of that 49.7 area should put us into this scenario as a stronger possibility anyway. So fingers crossed that's what we get. I don't believe this is the time to panic out of anything. It seems it's never a good idea to be selling into a bloodbath. I mean, that's what causes these capitulation wicks in the first place. That is weak hands getting their stop losses hit and selling out, getting shaken out of the market basically. And right now the fear and greed index is at a 16, I think, on Bitcoin, which is just a ridiculously low level. And we almost always see a reaction from a level that low. There's so much fear in the marketplace right now that it gives the smart money an opportunity to just buy up all of the people that got shaken out in this region. That capitulation wick pretty much shows smart money was buying there. So there's your hopium for the day, and let's see if it continues to play out this way. But we'll keep watching it, and if anything changes, we'll let you know. All right, good night, everybody.